Hello and welcome to Nikolai's genetics lessons, and the first question of the day, genetic variation, and we have to choose one of the statements which is correct. And let me start with the end of this list. Arise in response to changes in the environment. Is it true or not? Actually, genetic variation arise due to presence of the mutagens, and also our own replication mechanism is not 100% efficient, and during replication, meiosis for example, such mutations can arise spontaneously. So the statement is false. Statement C, genetic variation tends to be reduced by when diploid organisms produce gametes. It sounds like it can be correct answer because of course haploid organism would have less genetic variation than diploid organism. But actually this question about population level, and after any organism produce gametes which are haploid, the result would be that gametes would join in order to make a zygote, again diploid organism. So a multiple cycles of gametes production in each generation doesn't cause any reduction in genetic variation. And variant B, genetic variation is increased by the direct action of natural selection. And actually, in order for natural selection to work, genetic variation must be present in a population before a natural selection can act upon the population. So the correct answer is answer A. So genetic variation have to be present, and genetic variation is caused by mutagens, by mutagenesis, and by also our own replication mechanisms, which, as I said, not 100% efficient. In higher organisms, such replication mistakes happens rarely, but in, for example, bacteria, such replication mistakes happens very frequently, which leads to very genetic diverse population of bacteria, and which also leads to very quick adaptation of bacteria to changing environmental conditions. And next question, whenever diploid populations are in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium at the particular locus, and again we have to choose the correct statement. Statement A, two alleles are present in equal proportions. Is it true or false? Take a look at this picture. What do we see here? We see here frequency of the dominant allele. So starting from 0.1, actually from 0, and it's growing up to 1 or 100%. And here is the frequency of the recessive allele, which can start with 100% and move to the 0. So when frequency of one allele growing, the frequency of the other allele will be reduced. But together they would make 100% or 1. So if we add these numbers, we are going to get 1. So in order for a population to be stable according to Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, these three lines represent three different genotypes: homozygous recessive for blue, green heterozygous, frequency of the heterozygous genotype, and red line represent frequency of the dominant genotype. And for example, if we choose that the frequency of the two alleles is going to be 50% each, so going to be here, then we expect the frequency of the three genotypes in population to be as follows. Frequency of the homozygous dominant genotype is going to be about 25%. Frequency of the homozygous recessive genotype is also going to be 25%, and frequency of the heterozygous genotype is going to be about 50%. But population also can be stable with different frequency of the alleles. For example, with dominant allele being 0.7 and recessive allele being 0.3. So 70% and 30%. In this case, again, we also can draw a line, vertical line here, and we can find the frequency of the three genotypes. For example, frequency of the homozygous recessive genotype is going to be about 15%. And frequency of the dominant genotype is going to be around 45%. And frequency of the heterozygous genotype is going to be about 40%. So together they have to make 100%. And we can find frequency of the three genotypes according to frequencies of the two alleles, which can be different, and not necessary that two alleles have to be present in equal proportions. So this is false statement. And next statement, individuals within the populations are evolving. Actually, in the question itself, you have a hint. It is called Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. That means that population is not evolving and allelic frequencies stay the same from one generation to another generation. And that means, for example, that not only allelic frequencies would stay the same, but also genotypic and phenotypic frequencies also going to be the same from one generation to another one. And that means that this population is going to be in the equilibrium and it's not going to be evolving. And next statement C, the alleles frequency should not change from one generation to the next. Exactly what I have said previously. This is going to be the right description of the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. One more time. The alleles frequency should not change from one generation to the next. This is Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium definition, and this is going to be our choice. But let's check the last statement. Natural selection, gene flow, and genetic drifts are acting equally to change in allelic frequency. This is wrong statement because Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium about non-changing in allelic frequency in genotypes, phenotypes between generations. So that means that each new generation would have the same allelic, genotypic, and phenotypic frequencies and not going to be evolving. And this is all for today. Subscribe and see you in the next video. Goodbye.